All right. So let's start out with your name, what you do, Natalin. I've known you for what, 15 years or so now?
Yeah, yeah, right about 15. Well, close to maybe 13, but yeah,
Yeah.
because it was right when I met Tom. I hadn't been dating Tom, my husband, very long when I
Mhm.
met you. That
Yeah.
was a fun night.
That was that night. All right. So I know that you've gotten involved in a few charities and things with the stuff that you do for a living. Can you tell me how you got there?
With the fundraising that I'm trying to do right now is for I currently work at the YMCA as a personal trainer. I also work at another place called Urban Fitness. It just kind of caters to a different demographic of people. Urban Fitness is kind of more like the hardcore lifters, and the YMCA is more family oriented. Um, Bright lights, beautiful scenery of the river, that kind of thing. But right now, I am actually coordinating a fashion show for the YMCA Scholarship Fund, which benefits underprivileged families and children. Basically, gives them, it helps them be able to come to the YMCA during the summer months and after school, getting them off the street. When school lets out, there's nowhere for them to go. And what usually happens when kids have idle hands, they get into trouble.
Right.
Usually, not all the time, but usually. So this is going to make it to where more kids can come and they can play basketball, they can get involved in the water aerobics and actually learn how to swim, because a lot of kids don't know how to swim, and that's something that they definitely need to know. So this fashion show was actually somewhat thought of by another person, like suggestion wise, as far as like, why don't you try to do a fashion show here since you do modeling? I'm like, you know what? It's not a bad idea. And so far, it's hoping it stays this way. It's been stressful. I didn't think I could pull this off, and I'll probably after the day after be like, yeah, we'll see how my head is that the day after. But I'm hoping it raises a lot more money for the kids, and I'm hoping people understand that we as a community need to band together. And the whole fashion show itself is called Walking with Confidence, and it's trying to make it to where no matter what size, what shape, what age, what race you are, we can all have the same amount of confidence. And that's what I'm trying to instill in each and every one of them.
Okay. Well, how did you get there? Take me back a couple of years. How did
More
you
like till I
go
was
from?
5. When I was 5 years old, yeah, my experience with bullying started when I was 5 in nursery school. I went to Noah's Ark Nursery School in Linden, New Jersey, and got picked on from day one. Just about the way I looked. I didn't know there was anything wrong with the way I looked. It went on my entire grade school, high school. I actually dropped out my senior year in high school. Uh, I don't advocate violence at all. So when I tell the story, I warn all the kids that when I go talk to them at schools, don't do what I did, but this is what I did, because I want to be completely honest. When I believe I was a freshman or sophomore in high school, I got picked on by this 200 and some pound guy. He was probably 6 feet tall. He kept picking on me every single day, and I got tired of it. I remember throwing my books down on the ground in the hallway, walking into the classroom, the classes had just let out, picking him up and throwing him. And then after that, everybody's like, okay, we're not going to F with her anymore. And that was my way of standing up to my bullies. And I got called Shira from then on. Uh, it was kind of more like that fight or flight syndrome type thing. My adrenaline just kicked in. I was not that strong back then. I don't really know if I could ever pick anybody up like that now, just to throw them like that. But like literally, he was thrown. Um, that's when you just have to learn. You have to stand up to the people that do this to you. And that's what I instill in the kids. I don't advocate the violence part, but I do advocate that you need to stand up to your bullies so that they stop. I do tell them, and I instruct their parents, and I heavily advise their parents, every child needs to learn self-defense. And if you do not get your child in some sort of self-defense class, you're not doing your part to help them help themselves. And it's a combination. The kids can't do much for themselves sometimes. The schools, many of them, in my experience, are lacking. The outside help to these children is lacking. The parents need to step up, and they need to get their kids some way, shape, or form to be able to not be afraid of the person that is trying to hurt them. It
Right.
also helps later on in life. Your sound went out completely.
I said, so they need the
Oh.
confidence, and this helps them get that.
Yes, exactly. And it makes them less afraid, to where when that, if that 2 inches taller guy is, standing up to you, having you against the locker, oh well, it's not going to bother them anymore. And that's the main thing that they have to do, is that they have to not let it bother them as much as it does, which it's overkill at this point, where it's making it to where these kids are so afraid. And there's this point where I just want to just take them and realize there's not really much for you to be afraid of, because they're not going to do what they claim they're going to do to you. And it's all in fear.
Right.
It's too much. And there's no one, I shouldn't say no one, there's not enough people telling them what the real reason is that they're doing this to them. That these kids that are being the bullies, they're having issues at home. It doesn't excuse it, but they're not telling them these kids, guys, girls, whoever, is a coward themselves. And that's also what I teach them when I go and speak to them. I kind of keep it on the real level, and I pretty much laid out bluntly. I said, there is something wrong with them. They feel inadequate about themselves, and they have to make you feel worse about yourself in order for them to feel better. And that's where it stems from. No one just wakes up one morning and says, I just feel like beating this kid up today. I don't believe that happens. I believe that there's something wrong with them. And there is. It's been proven.
Right.
They're suffering from something that is going on in their own home or their own life or their own insecurities. And that's the way for them to deal with it. Doesn't make it right. But then someone's got to eventually put them in their place. And then you also have your flip side, where there are some kids that just need a good, they need to be disciplined, and they're not. And there are people that are not stepping up to that plate and disciplining these kids that are causing ruckuses and causing problems, especially in the classroom, because what's the first thing that you do when a kid is making problems in the classroom? You just send them to the principal's office. You're not really disciplining them. You send them home. So what do? They keep acting up, so they go home. They don't understand the ramifications of, oh, I'm going to get expelled. Who cares? Or suspended. Oh, I get to stay home for 5 days and play video games while mommy and daddy are at work. That's what they think. No one's teaching them, you're not going to get into a good school. You're not going to have a good job. You're going to be working at Burger King and McDonald's, And then I touch on my life, where I dropped out of high school as an honors student, which was stupid. I was an honors student, and I was in the second month of my senior year. I totally screwed myself out of a college education. And then I was forced to work at minimum wage jobs for many, many, many years, as I think you know, and being completely unhappy, working myself, a lot. And then when I got a job 14 and a half years ago as an oxygen technician, I was like, oh, this is great. I finally have stepped up in the world. I could afford my own home, cars, everything. But because I didn't have the education level to go past it, I was trapped in a job that I absolutely hated, because I was treated so poorly by not only the company that I worked for, but the patients that I had to see. And there was no cameras or anything to show what was actually happening behind closed doors.
Well, let's get into that a little bit. Like, that was a good job for you. It was a good step.
Oh, yeah.
And then you started having lots of problems, and that's what propelled you to where you are now.
Yes.
So what was happening there?
The first few years, it was, and I mean like literally the first 3 or 4, I was told that my patients and their spouses did not like the way I looked. Back then I would, wear makeup to work, and because I actually went to the homes. I didn't have a uniform per se, so I wore I wore khaki pants, and I would wear just a solid color shirt. I actually was called into my boss's office because I was told that a wife complained that my breasts were too large. And they were like, we're going to need you to take care of this. I'm like,
what are you supposed to do about that?
I had to get a breast reduction. Now, technically, looking back at it now, if I really wanted to fight it, I could. In all honesty, so this is where the part where I'm very honest. I did want one. I didn't like the fact I was told that I needed to not have such large breasts. That bothered me. But I wanted breast reduction anyway. Went ahead and got the surgery. They really didn't appear much smaller, in retrospect. More complaints came after that about my breasts being too large. I'm like, I've already had a surgery. There's not much more else I can do. So I started wearing extremely baggy clothing. I mean, like 3 sizes too large. Then I was told that I looked sloppy. I was like, okay, I have large breasts. I have to wear larger clothes in order for me not to for me to cover this up. What else would you like me to do? They really couldn't give me an explanation or anything like that. I actually ended up having a second reduction surgery, which still didn't make them go any much smaller. The complaints on that kind of segued. I didn't really hear much after that. Then I started getting tattooed. I had them covered up because it was on the upper sleeve. I didn't have anything on my forearms till later on. Now, yes, it was against company policy, and I had sleeves to cover it up. But then it was brought to the attention of my supervisors once I was out of work, like when I was on the weekend. People had an issue with the way I looked on the weekends. It's like, what business is that of yours? Well, you're supposed to represent our company 24/7. No, I'm not. I only get paid for when I'm at work. And
Right.
so that was a controversy issue. Several workers or patients had complained about, again, my body, my strength, because I was able to do more than the guys can do. Where it took 2 guys to lift a backup tank, I was actually able to throw it on my shoulder and carry it into the house without a hand truck. That was brought up several times in discussions. I really don't know why. Probably about 3 or 4 years ago, another one of my supervisors told me that it was physically impossible for a female to do what you claim you do in a day. And that kind of threw me for a loop because I've proven that I was able to do what I physically could do throughout the day. And we had an argument to where just because the guys can't do it doesn't mean I can't. Now, let me kind of cover myself here. Just because I say the guys couldn't do it doesn't mean all men cannot do it. It was the guys that I worked with
Right.
could not do it or refused to do it because they even self-proclaimed that they were lazy, and they're like, I'm not doing this. I'm like, okay, great. You're not going to do it, but I have a job to do, and that's what I'm going to do. Also, that's where, my ego would kick in, and it actually made me happier to be able to do something that they said that they couldn't do. It's kind of a girl thing, I guess. I don't know. Finally, after literally, it was a total of 14 and a half years, I worked my butt off for this company, put myself through hell. Even there was one time with a patient who held a gun to my head on Christmas Eve. And because I cried begging for him to put the gun down, he made a complaint, and I was reprimanded because I cried.
And your company didn't back you up?
No.
On a patient holding a gun to your head?
No.
Nice.
And finally, back this past August, in 2017, I was terminated from my job because of my hair that I had for 2 years prior. And it was always worn in a ponytail, in a braid. They just said that I caused too many problems. And that was the end of that. And then because that happened, for about a week, I was kind of like, what am I going to do? I've always wanted to do personal training. That was my dream, ever since I started lifting when I was about 14, 15 years old. I was like, oh, I can do this for a living. never went through with it because I knew it involved school, and I'm kind of glad I didn't go through with it back in the day because yay, internet has made everything so much easier. Um, I still had to go through the school, but of course everything was online. I've been doing this for 20 years, so I knew how to do everything. I've actually worked in gyms before, but I worked under the direction of the gym itself, where I did not have to be certified. I was supervised by them.
Right.
So I got my certification in December of 2017. In January of 2018, I was hired by the YMCA in Danville, Virginia. And then literally it was maybe not 2 weeks after I got hired, I started my own business, and it's called Body by Natty. And I have my own clientele. Those are mostly my urban fitness people, just because it's a different clientele. But it's my business. I don't have to answer to any boss. If I want to take a day off, I can. If I can't come into work, for some reason, I just tell my clients I'm not working today. However, back about 8 weeks ago, I came down with a severe case of bronchitis, which turned into borderline pneumonia because my dumb self did not take a single day off and did not miss a single client appointment because I would not take a day off. So it progressed. But the point is that no matter how sick I was, I still had the work ethic of still going to work every single day.
How did you get into the modeling, the fashion shows, the talking to the kids?
The modeling started from seeing a post on Facebook saying there was a casting call for a fashion show in Greensboro, North Carolina, from this woman named Kia Sherry. And back about 10 years ago, I was like, maybe I could be like a plus size model, because I am, plus size. I'm size 18, 20. And, they said, well, you have to be 5'8" inches tall. I'm a midget. I'm 5'2". And if anybody, I love midgets, by the way. They're my favorite kind of people. They just make me smile. I do. But yeah, at 5'2", they're like, you can't be considered a plus size model because you have to be 5'8" inches tall. I was like, oh, well, there goes that potential, segue into something else. That was about 10 years ago. So then when Kia Cherie has this casting call, I contacted her. I was like, by the way, what height do you have to be? And she was like, you don't have to be a height. I was like, are you serious? I'm 5'2". Is that okay? And she's like, yes, come on down. I was cast in the fashion show, and I was the only one with tattoos, as many as I have, which I have 25, and multicolored hair, and I did not fall, and I'm a klutz. And it went well, and it snowballed from there, because right at the same time that I auditioned to be in her show, there was this thing on Facebook, and it was I guess you can call it audition, but it was to be in a national calendar for a company called The Girl Next Door by Misty Kemp, who lives in Indiana. So I'm looking through, and it showed like the candidates at the moment. And so I was like looking through, and I'm like, okay, this one has a lot of tattoos. This one has a different look. This one's not skinny. Oh, this one's bigger. This one has breasts. Oh, wonderful. Maybe I can do it. I literally sent it out as its and giggles. I did not think it was going to happen. And then thankfully, to all of my wonderful people that follow me, all my fans, all my friends, my family, I actually won a spot, and I am Miss February 2018. So my first publication is in a national calendar. We'll have those, by the way, if you want one. All of the proceeds of the calendar have gone strictly to my anti-bullying campaign, where this is not the bracelet. This is actually one of mine. But I want to get bracelets for all the kids, and I needed a certain amount in order to make the bracelets cheaper for each one, because I'm purchasing them myself. So all that money that I got from the calendars is set aside for getting bracelets for them. So for the 2018-2019 school year, I can give them something. And I'm still trying to come up with a slogan that I want to put on it. Just something for them to look down on and like give them that hope for the day
Right.
type thing. I just want, just haven't been able to pick out something in my head yet. I don't want something cheesy. I want something that's really meaningful that will actually be like, you know what? Yeah. Okay,
Right.
but it cut off for some reason.
Yeah, everything just cut for a reason. I don't
Okay,
know what that was.
sorry.
Sorry,
I didn't even touch anything, so I don't know what happened.
I think my internet
Um,
just burped for a minute.
oh, okay. My second publication was in a magazine based out of North Carolina. This is terrible of me, but my memory is horrible. I can't remember the exact name of the magazine. I was sent the copy, not of the magazine itself, but the article itself, where my photo is in that, and I was very appreciative that someone decided that I could be in a magazine. It's pretty nice. I like it. It's great. But then I also talk about that with the girls because I stand in front of them in my 5'2" self with my, Kiss boots that are like that thick, my platforms because they're cool looking. And then I tell them it's like I'm 41 years old and I'm covered in tattoos and I have crazy color hair and I can still, I'm able to walk down a runway. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be a little itty bitty size 2, which is nothing wrong with being a size 2, but you don't have to be perfect in their eyes, or you don't have to be tiny, or you don't have to have, the perfect figure and whatever their mind is perfect, because there is no such thing. And I use that as my experiences.
How did it make you feel? How did you change going from the environment where people picked on you and to now an environment where you're a model and you're in magazines?
There was probably never a time where I thought, one day I'm going to be something that people would be contacting for either, inspiration or help. And I am in that position now. And it's mind boggling at times because I never once thought it was not in the cards for me. I would, you kind of, you wake up every day or you go to bed every day and you want to mean it for your day to mean something. And I never thought that was going to happen. It definitely did not happen with the past job that I had. Every day was kind of just, miserable. Like I even told my husband on a day-to-day basis, I don't feel like I'm doing anything important. And that's what I want to do. I want to do something important every day to make a difference some way, somehow. So looking back to how it was and looking now, it's such an amazing transition, and I'm enjoying as much as I can of it before one day it's not going to be there. I'm trying to take advantage of it as much as I possibly can. That's kind of why I'm working as much as I can. That's why every single weekend is booked, which is ridiculous at this point. And I'm hoping it lasts a while. I don't see myself doing this at 50 years old, but I mean, who knows? We'll see. Not bad for 41 with the car. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to talk about? Anything else you want to go over?
um, Main thing is that I want everyone to be able to chase their dreams. Main thing is that whoever is watching this or who reads this or anything, because even as adults, I see it on a day-to-day basis. A lot of people, and I blame the internet for this, a lot of adults have the mentality of children or teenagers where they let their emotions take over. And I'm guilty of this myself, but I kind of do it more of in a private situation. Like when I get angry at home.
Right.
You know, I yell at the walls, or I yell in the direction of my husband or my roommate. You know, not yet. Well, unless it's their fault, then I yell at them. But if I'm just mad in general, I just yell it out here. I don't feel the need to put my thoughts and feelings out for everyone to see, so that other people can tear that apart. And I think that's what a lot of people need to learn, is that you don't have to let the world know every single thing that's going on in your head. I understand you need to let it out, but that's when you need to have those one or two friends that you need to contact, and you need to be able to, you know, consult with them in private. We all have something that we're going through, and it's not the end of the world. And everybody, I think that people forget that, and then they publicly display they're giving up. And there's been a few times where people that knew me, that were close to me, friends of mine, were like, you know, oh, I just have, you know, I have to work so hard. And I think I literally took one of my friends and I shook him, and I was like, you have no idea what hard life is, you know. And I would tell him my story. He's like, I had no idea about what you had to go through. It's like, you don't, and you can't let every single solitary thing bother you to the point where you can't function. Also, somebody said something about your hair. Who the hell cares? Go on about your day. You know, people like literally shut down for the entire day because somebody said something stupid as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And then they want to stop the kids from bullying each other, and then you watch parents, not parents, excuse me, but you watch adults doing it to each other all day.
Yeah.
And they're not learning that they can't do that. Everybody sees what you do, and you just can't do that. I have to watch what, even if I have a thought. If I see something who absolutely said the most stupidest possible thing on social media, I keep my mouth shut because I don't want to come across as someone who's attacking another person. Even though that person really, like, did you just say that? Did that just come out of your mouth? Everybody needs to forget this is not the thing that you have to rely on. You have to remember to be with your friends and family in person, and stop worrying about what everybody on social media is saying about you. Because I'll be honest, if I see something negative about me, I just immediately, you know, delete, block that person. If that person has a problem with me, I just let that person go. I have no qualms about it. People, you actually see people who get upset about, you know, somebody saying something and they don't even know the person. Like, who cares? Just get rid of them. Why do you even keep them? Let them see what you do on a daily basis. And because I was picked on my entire life, I'm at the point now where if somebody says something negative about me, which is said all the time, I'm like, okay, what are you gonna do about it? When they can't do anything about it, that's the point that I try to prove. It's
Right.
like, again, try to be like me. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but at least I don't let what someone says about the way I look or the way I act make it to where I change. Because you've known me for, you know, almost 14 years now. Have I changed one iota since you've met me?
I don't believe so. No.
Exactly. I'm happier now, you know, especially after not having the job that I had for so long. But I'm not going to change who I am. There's never going to be a day where I come and you see me and I'm not my normal self. If I'm not, then you know there's something wrong.
No, it's better that way.
Yes, exactly. Because everybody loves the short, bubbly person.
Do you have a website or anything where people
I
can look for
I
you?
do. I do. Anybody can find me on Facebook. I have two Facebook pages. I thought that I was going to have to try that I could separate my wrestling persona from my regular persona, but I'm pretty much the same person. So my regular person is Natalina Petronella Lewis, and my other Facebook page is Natalina Corvino, which is my wrestling name. Under Instagram, I am Natty Nattyy 2977, and I hardly ever use Twitter because I don't understand it.
It took me a while to get used to some of these things.
I just don't like Twitter. I like to stalk people on Twitter, but that's about it. Only my favorite like actors and stuff. That's it.
All right.
And you can find any like of my YouTube videos, which I don't post myself, but any of my matches that someone else has posted is under YouTube under Natalina Corvino.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for doing this with us.
Of course, thank you.
All right. You have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.